Hey everyone, welcome back to the couch. I'm Caitlin, licensed therapist and anime fan, and this is our monthly couch chat. If you're new here, these are sessions where we slow down together, reflect on the emotional and relational themes behind the anime that we've been watching, and explore what they can teach us about healing, empathy, and connection, and also seeing if there are any lessons that we can apply to our own lives as well. All right, this month I started with Wolf Children, and I'm not going to lie to y'all. This was much more emotional than I was anticipating. Um, but it's a film that explores motherhood, love, loss, and identity in such an honest way. And I think it was something about that really touched me this time around. We get to see Hana's journey of raising her children after losing her partner, um, learning to balance care, survival, and freedom, right? To let them become who they want to be. It's a story kind of about strength of empathy and how love continues to shape us even after loss. There's something quietly powerful about the way that Hana loves. It's without expectation. She doesn't need any recognition either. Her nurturing becomes its own kind of healing. And then after that, we get into Fruits Basket, right? And then in Fruits Basket, we see empathy expressed in those small, quiet moments, right? So when Yuki falls sick, Toru's care isn't dramatic, it's gentle and consistent. She tends to him with warmth, presence, and emotional attunement. And then same with Hyoi. We see him lashing out, kind of pushing people away in frustration, and instead of reacting, Toru meets his anger with compassion. She senses right the pain behind the words and she stays grounded. These are moments that remind us that empathy doesn't always look grand. Sometimes it's sitting beside someone who's hurting, choosing to see the person beneath their defenses. And then we wrapped up with Demon Slayer. And with Tanjiro, his journey of empathy continues to evolve. So in episodes 5 and 6, we see how he approaches demons with compassion, even as he's fighting with them. So his ability to recognize their suffering, to mourn for them rather than hate them, it says so much about how empathy can exist even within strength. And then in episodes 7 and 8, we can see his empathy deepen. So Tanjiro not only is starting to see that he's fighting for himself and his sister, he's recognizing that a lot of people have gone through this same sort of pain and suffering that he's experienced. And so now he's also fighting to protect not only his sister, but to protect people he comes across, right? And he's kind of carrying their wounds with him as well. And so this is kind of transforming, right, into him developing more courage. And it helps him, right? It's not just out of a sense of duty that he's acting, it's kind of out of this shared humanity. So, what ties all these stories together? I think it's the idea that empathy heals not just others, but ourselves. Hana, Toru, and Tanjiro each show that when we open our hearts, when we choose to care even when it hurts, we become stronger and more connected. and more human. Empathy isn't weakness, it's the willingness to stay open in a world that often asks us to close off. So, I'd love to hear what resonated the most with you this month. For me personally, it had to have been Wolf Children, seeing Hana's journey. Again, I was really caught off guard with the impact that the loss of her partner was going to have even on me. And I think it's kind of an interesting tie-in talking about empathy, right? Being able to kind of feel and stand beside somebody. And for me, I feel like part of the reason why I feel so deeply at times when I watch stories is related to empathy, right? Related to really feeling those experiences that happen. And so not only feeling for her when she loses her partner, but also too towards the end of the film when she learns to kind of love through letting her son go as well. That had to have been the standout moment for me. But let me know what resonated with you, right? Was it Hana's resilience? Was it the quiet care of Toru? Or Tanjiro's empathy, right? Even when he's battling. I want to hear, what did these moments make you reflect on in your own life? Maybe it's how you show care, or maybe where you've experienced empathy that helped you heal as well. Okay, I want to go deeper into what it means to keep our hearts open even when it hurts. So, empathy asks us to feel with others, right? Not just for them. And that can be uncomfortable because it means we allow ourselves to be moved, to be changed by someone else's story. And I think this is exactly what I was touching on when I talk about how moved I felt with Hannah's story in Wolf Children and the type of impact that it had on me, right? And so in Wolf Children, we see Hannah open her heart fully and it breaks her at times. But that same openness is what allows her to grow, to love deeply, and to find meaning after loss. In Fruits Basket, Toru's empathy creates a safe space for others, right, to soften. Her presence gives Yuki and Hyoi permission to feel. And she reminds us that healing often begins in the presence of someone who truly sees us. And Tanjiro, his empathy pushes us to think about compassion beyond comfort, right? So his grief, fear, pain, um, he doesn't let it make him cruel. Instead, his heart stays open even when it would be easier to shut it. So, opening our hearts doesn't make us fragile, it makes us alive. It allows us to see that everyone is carrying something unseen, and sometimes the simple act of staying open, of choosing kindness, can be what helps us both get better. So, this month's quote feels like the heartbeat of this conversation. What happens when people open their hearts? They get better. I love this because it reminds us that healing doesn't always come from fixing things. It often comes from connection, from allowing ourselves to be seen, known, and cared for. When we open our hearts, even just a little, that's where growth begins. So, looking ahead, next month I will be continuing Fruits Basket and Demon Slayer, and we're going to be diving into a movie called The Wind Rises. This is going to be my very first time watching it, so I don't really know much about it yet, but from what I've heard, it's kind of a story about dreams and creation. So I'm really curious to see what emotional themes will pop up. And as always, we're going to be unpacking it together right here on the couch. If this couch chat resonated with you and you want to keep reflecting on the emotional heart of these stories with me, don't forget to subscribe and stay on the couch. This was kind of fun. This was probably the first time that we cried together. I can only imagine there's going to be a lot more of that as we continue on this journey. So I feel like that's a good milestone to have. And on that note, rest easy, feel deeply, and I'll see you in the next session. Bye.